Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Program Manager Brady Richardson and Group Product Manager Bill Anderson.
This is so weird and exciting at the same time. So this is, as Brady and I were talking earlier, this will be the first time in 4 years that Brady and I have stood up here and not actually promised something, but delivered it. So we're really excited. October 22nd, you know, I have no children, but I firmly believe I understand what childbirth is like now. So we released on October 22nd. It's been really, really super duper exciting.
It's a little strange, though.
It's a little strange, yeah. It is weird. So Brady, my chore for the next 74 minutes and 56 seconds is to kind of give you a little bit of some of the things that have gone on. You know, we're not going to do a bunch of details around deployment because you got Kyle Smith and you got Steve Kazmarek who are going to be talking throughout the week in detail about client and server deployment. So what we really want to do is we kind of set the stage of the past few months to give you some feedback on where customers are really at with this. But then Brady and I want to set the next 12 months. We want to get you ready for SP1. We want to get you ready for the deployment feature pack. We want to get you ready for device management. We also want to talk a little bit about some of the other smaller things that have gone on, like the updates for MBSA 1.2 and those types of pieces. So it's really what we want to spend the next 75 minutes or so doing, is really kind of setting up the next 12 months for you around SMS.
So in other words, we do have some more stuff we can promise.
Yeah, we have all kinds of stuff we can promise. I actually need the clicker. Forgot about that. And if you have any questions as we go along, raise your hand. I can't see you anyway, so we'll just ignore you. It's so bright up here. So, but we shipped, and it was really, really, oh my God, we made the bus bigger. I love it when they touch this. This was the bus at IT Forum over in Copenhagen, Denmark. So we actually took the buses and we logoed them with SMS 2003. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever been to Copenhagen, but they have this amusement park over in Copenhagen. It's called Tivoli Gardens. So we took the bus and we parked it in front of the Tivoli Garden sign and took a bunch of pictures. So the joke was that even the Tivoli Gardens were decorative SMS as we released this fall. So it's pretty exciting. How did these get out of order? Our slides got way out of order, like silly out of order. We don't care about that. Okay. What's more important is what have we done since ship? Many of you know that it's a tradition for Brady and I to stand up here and do our top 10 list. So now that we no longer are promising anything.
Well, I've been very busy since ship. I've been trying to port SMS localization into Aramaic.
That's right, I forgot. That's his prep project that he's working on. He believes he can get $120 million from Mel Gibson if he gets that done. So we've been doing a lot of customer stuff, but there's a lot of other things that have been really important that we've been focusing on since ship last fall. So we've done a lot of search and replace. We've had to change a bunch of the text as far as competitors and partners go. You know, PowerQuest now equals semantic, ON equals semantic, Miramar equals CA, Novonom equals HP, and Altiris equals competitor. Number 9, we've been working a lot on a few small projects. TMR and OMR, which are the Topaz release and the Opal release for MBSA, System Center 1, which you saw a little bit of today. Service Pack 1, OSDFP, WTF, what the, oh, I know what that stands for. And of course, EIEIO. So a lot of small projects that we've worked on. One word.
Xbox.
Exactly. So we've finally gotten caught up on this really cool technology we've got now called Xbox. So at least spend a little time there. We're still not managing them.
No, we're going to work on that.
Exactly. Number 7, we've been working on our resumes. You know, you get done with a long ship cycle, you want to update things, and we figured out it's hard to do resumes in Visual Studio, but we're working on them.
And we are working on a new reality show that we're going to be coming out with, which was my big, fat, obnoxious software management product.
We're planning our next release of our product in 2008.
But what if we ship it after July, Bill?
Then we'd have to call it 2009, wouldn't we? The whole thing's so confusing, I get them backwards.
We've been doing the talk show circuit as well. We're going on Jerry Springer in a few weeks. We just finished filming it. It's called Novodyne Altiris Customers That Secretly Love SMS 2003.
And no one on this stage currently will be naked, so that's a good thing. So we've been trying to filter some of the calls that Martha Stewart's been giving us. Since we shipped, she's been all concerned about SMS ship and the impact to Microsoft stock. And so she's been trying to get some insider trading tidbits from her. So we've been trying to keep her filtered and screened because, hey, we don't want to go to jail.
And we've also had some talks with the FCC. We want to be sure that we don't have anything like happened in the Super Bowl. We don't want any malfunctions of the wardrobe. So we've been checking on that.
Yep. And the number one thing that we've been doing since ship is we've been working on the movie version of SMS 2003, entitled SMS 2003, The Return of the King. And it's good to be back. Really excited. It's as exciting to hear Bob Muglia stand up and tell the world about what great things we've done with the product in the 5 months since it's been released.
Yeah, we should ship products more often.
Yeah, we should ship products more often. You said it backstage, we should ship products that work more often. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so let's take some statistics. How many of you remember, and you can raise your hands, but I can't see you anyway, but if you want to yell out a number, go ahead. How many of you remember the number that Brady and Derek and I promised last year of machines that we would have in production before RTM and before we'd ship the product? Anybody remember a number? Guess not. 125,000 machines in production with a stretch goal of 150,000. When we released to manufacturing on October 22nd, we had over 250,000 machines in production on SMS 2003. And we couldn't stop people from deploying it. We told them, no, please, just do a couple thousand. They're like, no, you don't get it. We had customers. We literally pulled a report from Europe. We had 12 customers across the European geography that were in production pre-release without our support. Kind of scared me, but it was pretty cool, too, in parallel to that. But we've done some great thing with the EAP program. We talked about it last year, and I really think it's the critical piece to the success of our product. And for those of you out in the audience today who were EAP customers, whether it be Tier 1, Tier 2, or even the RDP customers that came on at the end, you are the reason this product is as good as it is. You held our toes to the fire. You made us ship an absolute incredible quality product, and we thank you for all of the yelling and screaming and profanity you provided to us over that 2.5-year period. But we did some really incredible things with the product. We actually generated tests in a box. What we found out is that if we toss software to you and we say test it, you probably aren't used to testing it the way that we test it. So we built a lot of test-in-a-box scenarios around software distribution, software metering, patch management. In fact, we created 162 different scenarios that we test in a box that we could hand to the early adopter customers. And what did they do with this? Well, this is what a day in the life of an EAP customer looked like from Beta 2 to RTM. 350,000 packages deployed per week, 130 new collections created, 300 advertisements with an average of 99.7% success of all of the binaries that they were delivering. So that's what it looked like from Beta 2, which was in the summer, up until October. So for them, you can see it was a pretty busy 3 or 4 months worth of time. Some other interesting facts, because Brady and I like to toss out factoids. 4 million lines of code. Lines of code that were actually added in SMS 2003, about 750K. You can see DCRs, those are design change requests. So with the help of the early adopter customers, from the time we finished our initial specs until we shipped it, we made 635 design changes to the product. And they weren't trivial things, right? Things like delta rep to a distribution point was a design change request that we took after the specs were completed based on the EAP feedback. We ran a few test cases. Those are our internal scenarios, 110,000. 15,000 bugs were resolved. We had one single engineer who fixed 762 bugs, which is pretty impressive. The nodes in dog food, we had over 600 managed devices there. OTG's numbers actually were in the area of about 110 to 125, depending on the day. Donuts consumed in Friday war meetings. So we had a war meeting every Friday. We used to count M&Ms, for those of you guys who remember that. So this year we counted donuts in more ways than one. So the weight gained by the team
Between the two of us was pretty substantial.
Exactly, yeah. We'll not share, exactly. Hours worked by R&D to deliver 733,000 hours of research and development to ship this thing. The early adopter team traveled over 260,000 miles on-site visits with customers helping with deployments. We spent over 7,200 hours in war. yelling and screaming about what bugs we take and what bugs we don't take and whatever other personal slams we could generate. Typical software deployment success rate was at 99.9x%, which is just phenomenal. And then new customers in December. The reason I wanted to call this out, when HP acquired Novodyne a few weeks ago, they were actually talking about Novodyne's install base of about 500 customers. We had 900 new SMS customers in December. So it's been taken off like wildfire. It's been great. So what I want to do is spend some time now. We'll go back to the OTG slide later that got out of order. That's just a bunch of our internal stats as well. But I think what we really want to spend some time on is covering the things that you can see in the next 12 months. So this is actually an erroneous slide because we shipped this early. We were planning on shipping the MBSA 1.2 integration this week. In fact, we thought we were going to announce it probably Monday or Tuesday, but we ended up shipping this last Friday for both releases, not only for SMS 2.0, but for SMS 2003. You know, there was a gap between the time that MBSA 1.2 shipped and the time that SMS could actually collect that information. So we got that done, some great help from some early adopter customers to put in production, and we've got now the benefit of having the new version of MBSA plugged in. So what does that mean to you? Well, it means that Microsoft's Baseline Security Analyzer 1.2, which now has a broader set of products that it supports, is the feed engine that we use for SMS today. Moving forward, we'll use the Windows Update Services components that Bob Muglia and I talked about a few minutes ago. But for today, we're using the Baseline Security Analyzer. And by moving to MBSA 1.2, we now have better support for things like Exchange Server 2003. Of course, the big one is the ability to determine MDAC type of updates, which is something that wasn't there previous. Also virtual machines, so virtual server and virtual PC. BizTalk, Commerce, and you guys can read the rest that are there. So now getting a much richer set of patch data stored inside of SMS, as well as being able to pull those particular patches down from the web. It's also helped us with some of the localization pieces. So we've localized the catalog for French, German, and Japanese. Traditionally, it's been hard to get those international languages through MBSA. So we've done a better job with this integration to localize those pieces. Service Pack 1. We have a vision for the Service Pack, which is to basically continue the tradition we've got of security and reliability that we've set the bar on, as well as provide you the things that you need to continue to be successful. So Brady and I are going to work through some of the things like setup improvements, some of the newly supported platforms, some improvements in performance, security, reliability, as well as some of the partner extensibility.
Deployment. Deployment is an area that we've made changes that's very significant that existing customers need to know about. As you know, in SMS 2003, we have two clients. We have the legacy client and the advanced client. Due to changes that we've made to make SMS the most secure platform for doing software distribution and management, we're requiring that the advanced client be used on all platforms Windows 2000 and above because that provides the most secure environment. But what this means is that when you upgrade to 2003, you will no longer be allowed to run the legacy client on Windows 2000 or above. You're still using the legacy client for managing NT4 or Windows 98 systems, but beyond that, you need to switch to the advanced client. Most customers who are running the advanced client love it and want to do this anyway, but you need to be aware of this during the migration. If you have clients, if you're running SMS 2.0 and you have clients that are running the legacy client, they will not be upgraded when you upgrade the site to SMS 2003. So the best practice, what we recommend is if you're running SMS 2.0 today, you can actually deploy the advanced client through your SMS 2.0 infrastructure. Since it's just an MSI normal package installation, you can actually pre-deploy it to those clients and then upgrade your site to SMS 2003. Before the site is updated, those clients that are sitting out there running the advanced client, there's no management point infrastructure for them to talk to, but they'll be sitting in a quiet state waiting for that management point to appear when the site is updated, and then life is good, the client will pick up and be managed. If you're upgrading from RTM, from SMS 2003 RTM, then we strongly recommend that before you put SP1 on, that you go ahead and upgrade any of your 2000 systems and above that are running a legacy client, go ahead and upgrade those to the advanced client. Then when you upgrade the site to 2003, it will automatically upgrade those clients as well to the SP1 version of the advanced client. We're going to provide two different versions of SP1. We'll have both a downloadable upgrade, and we'll also be slipstreaming the CDs so that new versions of SMS that are purchased will come with SP1 pre-applied. And finally, we're changing the product ID key in SMS to 3.0 to the 3.0 standard after many, many years. So you'll no longer be able to put all ones in the product ID key when you install. You actually will have to put a product ID.
Yeah, there was always kind of a comfort level with that, wasn't there? Take the coaster, put it in a cup holder, type in 10 ones, and away you go. So we can't emphasize enough of the importance that we see in helping customers get to the default security configuration within any products from Microsoft. And that's why we're making these changes. It's absolutely critical that we give you the tools to get you to the most secure configuration by default.
I also want to put a plug in. Later in the week, John Ellis is going to be doing a presentation on SMS SP1 security, where he'll be talking about this in more detail, and I would strongly encourage you to attend that session, as that's really important content that you're going to be excited about.
Yeah, the investment that we've made in security engineering around the product has been pretty sizable. We know that a tool that has high rights and administrative control over lots of systems can be as much damage as it can be help. Especially if there's some kind of a man-in-the-middle attack or something is getting content from an untrusted source. So we'd really encourage you to take a look at SMS 2003 and the security improvements we've made to really understand how that can help you run your business in a more safe and secure way. And if you're not an SMS customer and you're evaluating enterprise management solutions in general, we'd really encourage you to look at the security of those particular tools that you're looking at, because we've learned very, very sincerely over the past 2 years how critical of a problem this is for you guys in your distributed enterprises. And we will do everything we can to make sure we default you to the most secure configuration. Of course, the right answer is get to RTM today, get your infrastructure in place, and you don't have to worry about this SP1 piece.
So we also are providing some new platform support in SP1. Among them, you saw in the demonstration this morning, you saw how we're doing work with a virtual server product. And as you may know, we already have another product out called Virtual PC that allows you to run multiple images of an operating system on a single host. We're providing support for these additional platforms for SMS. Virtual PC means that each of the virtual PC host and each of the guest operating systems can be fully managed as SMS clients, or that you can install site server roles on virtual PCs. We also have made inventory enhancements where it's possible now to see the relationship of the host system to the guest systems. So when you do hardware inventory, you'll see which system is the host system and which guest systems are being managed by it, so if you want to do some correlation in your reports. We're providing support for workgroups. For those customers who don't have Active Directory or using some other directory services product, or for home-type machines, or in the many cases we found where customers have a set of machines in their enterprise that are not part of a domain but wish them to be managed. So we're extending the support of SMS to be able to support those clients in a workgroup environment. We've completed our work to eliminate wins. You remember last year we talked about our drive to eliminate the dependencies on NetBIOS. And we've completed the work in SP1 where you can now fully run SMS without the network browser and without wins. It's fully tested and fully supported. We're providing the support for the changes that are coming along in XP SP2, the new internet connection firewall, and new changes that are being made there. 64-bit support, which we'll talk about, is that the 64-bit is becoming much more exciting in the marketplace, and we want to provide the ability that we can fully manage 64-bit systems, that all the capabilities we have of SMS from installation through patching and software distribution can be done on a 64-bit platform. And finally, we have other releases of software coming out, the Yukon release of SQL Server and the Longhorn release of the operating system that we'll be providing support for, particularly for the TAP customers who will be testing those products. They'll want to be running those under SMS, or they'll want to be deploying Longhorn clients and managing them in their enterprise, so we'll be providing that support as well.
Yeah, within OTG now, they're actually managing, I don't know if it's a few hundred or a few thousand right now, pre-release Longhorn boxes in production. So it's pretty critical for us for that early adopter customer space to support those yet-to-release operating systems. Another thing that's not listed under new supported platform that we're investigating heavily is the ability to manage Windows Storage Services, or WSS, for those of you who are looking at using Windows Storage Services as a file and print box, a way to get a great remote manageable platform. That's pretty critical for us to make sure that the agent works on it, and we're also evaluating whether we can have our distribution point role run on a WSS box as well. So anything we can do to make sure that all of the platforms from Microsoft that you're evaluating or deploying, we know how critical it is that you manage those. Now, outside of the supported platforms, we're also putting in a new policy as far as what our stance will be on our existing service packs. This has been a challenge, I think, for a lot of you as we've gone through the whole patch management crisis the past year to 2 years, which is we would release an update, and then a tool like MBSA would scan your system, and you'd go, oh my gosh, I'm at Win 2000 RTM. I haven't moved to Win 2K, whatever the latest SP is. The scan tool doesn't note my patch because the scan tool is only supporting an N-1 service pack matrix. So what we wanted to do is really formalize what our service pack support matrix will be. So you guys are fully aware of how quickly you need to continue to update your SMS infrastructure to be current and supported. So for example, we will support N-1 service pack compliance on all SMS 2003 infrastructure components. So service pack 1 will ship Q3 of this calendar year, ballparkish, right? So somewhere in Q3 when service pack 1 comes out. Service pack 2 for SMS 2003 will come out probably 6 to 9 months later after that. As soon as service pack 2 is out, our support stance will flip and say, you know what? For all your SMS components, you need to get them at a minimum of SMS 2003 SP1 to be supported. And I know as service packs are difficult for us to deploy, or difficult for you to deploy, difficult for us to get released, but it's really critical for us to be able to provide you the level of reliability and availability that you've come to expect, that you stay current. And you know, again, being ex-administrators, we always believed that most customers would version these things in every 3 to 6 months. But I was actually talking to an SMS 2.0 customer the other day that was still at SMS 2.0, no service packs. RTM code. After I picked myself up off of the floor, I was again amazed and astonished that it was working.
It proves that at least there was one SMS 2.0 installation that worked.
There was one, and it's still working. I don't know what it's doing. So for the infrastructure components, we'll adopt an N-1 support stance. So now the next question is, SMS manages lots of different Windows platforms. What is our stance on the platforms that we manage? Well, we believe that we're the tool to help you get current. So we're going to take a more relaxed approach to service pack support for the OS platforms. Our model going forward will be an N-2 SP model for the platforms that we are managing. So if all of a sudden, you're at XP SP1 currently, SP2 comes out, we're going to actually support N-2. So we would support all of those versions of XP because it's critical for us to help you get current as you move forward. Notice the big note, caveat, warning, danger, Will Robinson at the bottom, which is N-2 support is for our core components that we have control over. As you guys know, there are lots of components in the operating system that we rely on. Things like WMI, MSI, BITS, MBSA, and Windows Update services now. We will have to honor whatever support policy they put in place for their service pack support stance underneath of that. So if we take an N-2 support stance, but MBSA takes an N-1 support stance, we have no choice but to support what they choose. However, we're hopefully going to be an evangelist internally to get them to adopt a policy that's similar. Here we go.
So inventory is another area that we made improvements on in SP1. We made 2 primary areas that we improved performance. One was on the client side. We heard from a lot of customers, and you've seen it yourself as administrators, that when SMS inventory runs on the client, it is noticeable, particularly when it's running a full software inventory or full hardware inventory scan. So we've done a lot of work in SP1 to try and reduce the noticeable impact of running hardware inventory on the box. And we've made substantial improvements that are quite noticeable when you run SP1. So we've made improvements that make it more efficient, where we're using WMI to batch up updates that we're sending so we have less interruptions, less context switching that we're doing on the operating system. Those changes, we think you'll see a substantial improvement where SMS hardware inventory running is less invasive. On the software inventory side, we've made changes to try and make it possible for you as the administrator to select what you want to inventory and to exclude other things that are not important to you. We've done this by providing additional skip capabilities. So for example, as you already know in SMS 2003, you can build software inventory rules to look for specific folders or directories, multiple sets of rules. On each of those rules, you can specify an additional property to tell it to skip the Windows directory. So if you're looking for a particular DLL, you can say, look everywhere on the hard drive, starting at the root of the hard drive, but skip the Windows directory. If there's some specific set of files you're looking for in the Windows directory, you can set a rule for that and point it to the Windows directory and get the best of both worlds. By reducing the amount of data that we collect, we make inventory run faster, we reduce the amount of data that has to be stored in the database. It's a win-win situation all around to make it easier for you as the administrator to be more precise about what you want to collect.
And to put it in scope for you, in the internal testing that we've done, we believe that approximately 30 to 40% of the software inventory data and traffic that's generated is in SQL and /Windows.
Because there's a huge number of files in there, so.
Yeah, and we know how critically important it is for you to inventory free cell and hearts and spider and all kinds of things. So
now, unfortunately, and not surprising, as I think there hasn't been a single release or service pack of SMS that we haven't changed the defmoff. We have a defmoff change, so there will be an inventory resync. We've done this both because of the inventory enhancements that we've made to reduce collecting some information that was that had null data in it or wasn't valuable, but also things like the virtual PC changes that we talked about earlier to collect that. We have made changes to the defmoff, so there will be another inventory resync.
Yeah, and besides, you guys are getting so good with inventory resyncs, it's not an issue anymore. Software distribution. We've also made some changes to software dist in SP1, specifically for those of you who are running in a 3-tier hierarchy. For those of you guys who have played with SMS for a while, you know that the behavior is that the 2003 site where the package is created is actually responsible for sending this package to any new sites that you deploy. So it's not about the ongoing process, it's about the deployment of a new site, whether it's a primary site or a secondary site. Well, if I now create it at the top of my tier, but I'm bulking in a bunch of secondary sites that are way down the hierarchy, even if I want it to fan out, it doesn't fan out, because the original package source site is actually sending that new package down for all those new site servers. So what we've done in SP1 is we brought in this concept of a PCK file. This PCK file allows the source site, that original site that created the package, to be able to look at that new site that's coming in and then redirect it to its host site. So as you start looking at this gives you fan out not only for the existing infrastructure that really works now, but for any new servers that you're deploying that kind of broke those fan out rules. Now, to be fair, based on the concerns around latency in general, based as well on the great feedback we've seen from SMS 2003 early adopter customers and the folks that are in the market already, we believe that most of you are flattening your hierarchies, which is a good thing. We want you to do that. Brady and I decided we didn't want to spend a lot of time on scalability today because Steve Kazmarik's going to cover scalability soup to nuts when he does his server deployment session. But the scalability we've seen in inventory processing, the scalability changes that we've made in Distribution Manager, which I'll get to in a second, we believe are going to allow you to really flatten those hierarchies out, which allows you to reduce the latency in general. Patch management. We've made a couple of changes in patch management. One is how we manage MBSA, how we manage the MS Secure XML file. We found out that it was more important to watch how the file came down and make sure that your mssecure.xml or your mssecure.cab file wasn't out of date. Make sure you had status to confirm that those things had happened, etc. So what we actually have the ability to do is to go ahead and now manage the MSUS XML catalog updates with things like status messages. We have the ability to correlate some of those statuses a little bit better. So just the care and feeding of the MBSA and the MS Secure XML process. But I think probably the biggest thing for you guys is the top bullet, which is we now have the ability to grab the new XML catalog and inject it straight into DSUW. What does this mean? I no longer have to have inventory indicating that a system needs a patch before I can use DS. Like that? Yeah. So I no longer have to wait for inventory or do those artificial things, right? Go find a machine, force it to update so it gets in there and rerun the hardware inventory so it syncs back up and 17 things you have to do. Now literally the DSUW can consume the new XML file. So it's not relying on having that in inventory. So even if you have an inventoried, you can, or inventoried for the Brits, even if you have an inventoried, you have the ability to use DSUW to get the patch, bring it down, and go deploy it.
So the admin and UI and reporting changes we made. This is where you spend a lot of your day as an SMS administrator is in the admin UI, and we heard feedback that this was an area, there were several enhancements that customers have been asking for a while that we finally got around to making. One of them was adding folders support for the queries, packages, and advertisements and reports node so that you can organize. Many customers have many thousands queries or many thousand packages. Finally, we did it.
I was going to ask about drag and drop. No, I probably shouldn't.
We also did a great deal with accessibility. We, particularly in a government environment, we have lots of customers who this is an important requirement for them. So we've taken over 100 fixes in the accessibility area in order to be able to make the product usable in that environment where they have those type of regulatory requirements. We've also providing, aside from the arithmetic joke this morning, we're also providing support for the admin UI to run on localized OSs. We're doing this, and many customers want to run the admin UI on localized OSs, and we didn't previously have that support, so we're providing that now with SP1 as well for those customers who are running in an international environment that need to do that. We'll be doing a demo a little later that shows what the folder support looks like. So,
as well as inventory and anything else we can wing when we get to that point. Scale and perf. I think this is me. So there's a couple of scale and perf changes that we've made in SP1. The first one is giving you the ability to increase the number of DPs per site. And without going into too much detail, the way that the site-to-DP process worked currently is that the site server would initiate a connection to the distribution point, and it would work with that. And it can initiate a couple of threads of activity, but it didn't actually go on to the next DP till it finished the first one. So now, consequently, updating all your distribution points was only as fast as the earliest slow link or earliest slow download time. So one of the changes that we've made in SP1 is the ability to allow a site server to actually deploy the same content as multiple DPs in parallel as opposed to in serial. And I think Steve's going to give you guys some more details on the exact numbers. But today, basically, your site-to-DP ratios are in the 10 to 25 area, depending on how much work you're doing. This should be 50 to 100 in that ballpark or higher. Again, your mileage may vary. Please test, right? There's a big difference between sending out a security patch and something else like Office, right? So keep that in mind. The other feedback that we got from folks was that the site-to-site communication, although we throttle with the senders, was still a little unpredictable, and it was also kind of chatty. So we've put in this thing called sender pulse mode. What this does is it allows you as an administrator to specify both the size of the data blocks for the site-to-site transfer and the delay between sending. So now what I can do is if I've got a really unstable, very slow link, I can guarantee that these things are actually succeeding. So think of it kind of like a TCP sliding window type of approach, where I can really configure how many data blocks and the size of the data blocks to really match the needs of my network that I've got in place. Security.
Oh, do you want to do security?
No, you should.
We made a number of changes in security, which is what we mentioned earlier, why we're driving away from using the legacy client on the Windows 2000 and above platforms. A lot of this is driven by security. If you remember, in SMS 2003, we provided authentication that allowed the client to know he was talking to a real distribution point, that there wasn't somebody who was doing some kind of a man-in-the-middle attack who was pretending to be a management point or pretending to be a distribution point, that any content that was sent down was coming from a true and authentic source. But what we've completed the story with in SP1 is extending client authentication to the client side. There was a small risk that someone could pretend to be another machine and send up inventory from that machine. What we've provided in SP1 is an ability where the management point will know which machine he's talking to via client certification, and no other machine can impersonate him. So we know the inventory data we're getting from that machine is coming from that machine and from no other. This is very important for installations where they're concerned, they may have actions being taken based on that inventory data, and they want to be very certain that no one is spoofing that. Want to talk about the trusted root server?
Sure, absolutely. So one of the other things we found out is when you're behaving in a trusted type of environment like that, once you get the SMS agent down, it's kind of easy to deploy the certificates, but there's still a window of exposure from the time that the agent actually gets there until you get the certificate source. So what we've tried to do is make sure that we can provision the certificate at client installation. So what we've done is basically use this thing called the trusted root key. So in the MSI install for the advanced client, you're going to notice this TCF file that goes along with it. This allows you to specify, yes, I want to go auto-deploy my trusted root key as part of the initial advanced client installation. So now as I'm installing client at MSI, I'm actually able to get that trusted root key down there at first provisioning so it's in place. Again, it's all about minimizing that level of window of exposure.
We've also changed the communications port that the management point uses to IIS. It's sort of a security best practice that most people are changing the default port 80 to some other port number, but unfortunately in SMS 2003 RTM, we defaulted to port 80 and didn't have the ability to change that. So in SP1, we provide the ability to configure which port number you want to use for the various roles, the management points, distribution points, and the server locator point that use the IIS service.
Yeah, we found that all of you didn't just prefer to leave everything at port 80. Many of you are blocking it. So we knew it was critical to provide this. Now, I wasn't paying incredibly close attention. Did you talk about encrypting client inventory data or not?
No, I did not talk about that. We also are encrypting the client inventory data when it's sent up with the certificate so that we can prevent someone from intercepting and reading that data or potentially changing it as it's shipped across the wire.
Yeah, so again, it's not a promise that you can run an SMS managed device on the public internet without some kind of a secure connection like a VPN, but at least we're starting to put the right technologies in place to make sure you can protect that. Because many times with your business partners, you may be on what you consider to be a trusted connection, but you still want to take critical data like inventory and be able to actually encrypt that to further secure it. And there's a bunch of other security things that are tiny little pebbles and gravel that we're not going to bore you with, but needless to say, an immense amount of work between RTM and SP1 to really raise the bar for what security looks like for an enterprise management product.
And client health. This is an issue that many customers have. Managing a distributed number, a large number of systems, particularly those that are mobile, it's very hard for you as an administrator to know how many systems you actually have out there. This is critical when you want to do something like send patches out or send any software distribution out, and you want to see a high percentage of systems that are installing it. It's important that you know how many systems are actually out there. Taking into account you may have orphan systems or systems that haven't logged on for a long time because the user's on vacation. This has been a challenge that administrators have had for some time. So for the first time in SMS 2003 SP1, we're providing a feature dedicated to being able to measure and report on which clients are actually healthy or unhealthy in your environment. So we'll be able to figure out a system that hasn't reported inventory, that we haven't seen activity for some time. We'll be able to separate out of that number the systems that are actually online to the network and those that aren't online. We still won't, with this feature, be able to know a system that's offline on vacation and hasn't reported whether or not it's healthy. But by determining that there is a system that is online and it's not reporting inventory, and that is a system that by definition is unhealthy if it hasn't reported during the intervals that you set, and that allows that to be actionable for you to go out and either reinstall the SMS client or find out what's wrong and be able to put that system back into a managed state. So I have a presentation, the last session of the week, that's going to go into more detail on this. This is a feature that will continue to evolve as we move into System Center, because we think this is an important area that will more enhance this as each release goes on. But this was our initial release, provides the capability of your seeing what clients are healthy or are unhealthy. From a reporting standpoint, we'll provide a flag in the SMS database so that when you build a software distribution report, there'll be a new field in the database that indicates whether the client has been reported healthy that day or not, so that you can exclude in your software distribution reports, if you wish, you can exclude unhealthy clients. This will make it even easier when you're looking at those software distribution reports to see and account for the 100% of the systems that get it and take out of that number the systems that haven't installed the package because of other issues like an orphan client or a system that hasn't been online for a time, and to be able to take different action on that.
So, and a couple of other things that we didn't put up here that are just natively goodness around client health. I mean, the advanced client being able to be pre-staged in an image in and of itself allows you to have a higher guarantee that the client is there and up and running. The fact that we eliminated the deinstall behaviors that used to happen in the legacy client, right? The whole roaming behavior of 3 strikes and you're out and it just disinstalls, or it finds that it belongs to a new IP address range and it uninstalls itself. Not to mention that the advanced client is just bulletproof. So from a client health standpoint in general, we found that we're seeing numbers 20-25% more healthy than what we were seeing with the legacy client in place.
The typical reason from our experience we've seen that clients are unhealthy has been systems where the user is a high rights user and he will shut the service down or some other way disable the service from happening. So that's what typically has been causing a true unhealthy system. But since we can not only look at the inventory data and see whether or not it's reported, we've also provided a new point of information at the management point where we siphon off when the policy updates occur, which by default occur every 4 hours. We're now tracking at a much more frequent interval activity that goes to that client to be able to see more rapidly whether it's unhealthy. In addition to that, we are actually able to reach out and touch clients that we suspect to be unhealthy, do an ICMP ping, and if the system is available, then remotely connect to WMI and see that the client is actually installed, that the prerequisite services like bits are actually installed and still running, and if they're not, report that back to the administrator so that he can take remedial action to correct that client.
Yeah, the interesting thing is you guys are all been deploying lots of patches for the past few years. You basically go fire the patch out, and your troubleshooting really isn't about failures and SMS moving binaries around. It's more about clients that were just in an unhealthy state. So we want to give you tools ahead of time to be able to say, wow, before I send the patch out, what does my client health look like, and see if I can get those things fixed on the front end. Finally, if you're using SMS to manage servers, which the vast majority of you are, with the management pack extensions for SMS for MOM, there will be some improvements for client pieces there as well. So if the client agent is actually firing off events of success or failure, you can use the management pack inside of MOM to better manage that client health in your server data centers. Partner extensibility, as Bob alluded to earlier, and I'm not going to bore you with 150 icons that were up there. Partner extensibility has been a pretty critical thing for us. And in fact, it's been a big focus of SMS 2003. One of the things we really set off to do was not only build a solution, but to build an infrastructure that other people could extend. What we found out was that partnering in the enterprise management space has always been very difficult, and I'll show you a diagram of that in a second. And so it was really important for us as you look at the client side, you look at the management point, and you look at the UI to make sure it was completely extensible for these great partners to plug into it. So some changes in SP1. First of all, we're doing some changes in SP1 to accommodate the Dell patch integration. Now, I hope many of you have at least gone out to the Microsoft website and seen our keynote from IT Forum last fall. We did this killer demo with Dell integrated patching, where literally I go into my SMS compliance reports and I look at the same reports I showed earlier, but there's a category in there called Dell updates. So actually scanning against Dell updates for BIOS, firmware, SCSI drivers, other specific things that are unique to Dell servers, and being able to actually store that data as inventory exactly the way that we do with MBSA today. And then by using that same schema extension, be able to go into Distribute Software Updates Wizard, and as opposed to telling it security or Office on the dropdown, I just tell it Dell updates. And it gives me a list of the possible Dell updates that apply to my enterprise. I click them off in the same exact way that I would a security update inside of SMS, and then it redirects off to dell.ftp.com or to my quarterly CD that Dell provides me with my updates on it, so I can use the same process and the same infrastructure to manage Dell-related patches that I do for managing Windows or Office or SQL or Exchange patches inside of SMS. So we had to take some extensions to DSUW to make that happen. We also took some extensions inside of the UI for some freeform fields. Interestingly enough, if you look at the solutions from Excelinet and Vintella, they do a great job of plugging into our admin UI. In fact, it's so good you can't tell that it's a separate product. But they have some tabs in there. For example, MSI doesn't apply in the Unix space. So we had to give them some APIs to be able to suppress those. And they want to talk about things like RPM and other installers that are common with things like Red Hat Enterprise. So we've given them extensibility inside the admin UI model to suppress tabs that just don't make any sense, as well as to add in their own custom freeform tabs that really apply to managing a Unix box, a Palm, a BlackBerry, or any of those types of devices. In fact, if you look at partner extensibility, the model, the way it exists today, is you have a bunch of goo that you manage, and we partner by tying two databases together. Well, this is interesting, but at the end of the day, what it means is I have a lot of extra plumbing, a lot of dual operational processes, and a lot of high costs to be able to solve this problem. We thought, you know what, this just doesn't work. This is too expensive for all of you. So we've made some changes with this partner model. Let's get rid of the goo, gone. Let's go ahead and at the management point role, let's allow it to have open APIs, and let's allow these vendors to actually build a proxy on top of our management point. The Ventela solution for Unix and Linux boxes is a 2 megabyte ISAPI DLL that installs our management point role. That is it. There is no other infrastructure other than UI plugins that they provide. And by being able to do that, it actually allows them to manage Unix and Linux boxes with one single infrastructure, one process, and an absolutely lower cost. So Ventela is doing this for Linux and Unix. Excelinet is doing the same kind of integration around Palm and BlackBerry. 1E's been doing this since the dawn of time. Right? They write great integrated solutions inside of our sender roles and our management point roles. Companies like PS Soft are extending off the back end of our database. Just for kicks, because it didn't make the top 10 list, but we did it anyway. We took our SMS production database and threw it into PS Soft just to see what happened. 1 week, we were able to flesh through 90 million assets, filter it and boil it down to 1.2 million recognizable assets, and an assortment of assets that we could actually morph or model against our contract system, all in 1 week's worth of time for about 100,000 plus managed devices. Again, no infrastructure. So it wasn't like we had to go deploy a bunch of other stuff. It was a SQL database on the back end that we just offlined the data into. And then I already talked about the Dell integration for patch. So there's been a big push from us. There should be another line there. There we go. It's been a big push from us to make sure that we're building SMS from top to bottom as an extensible infrastructure to do solutions like this. And you're going to see bunches of them if you go down to the partner forum. So I encourage you guys as the week goes on to go down there and take a look at some of those pieces. Because our goal is to allow the Ventela guys or the Excelinet guys to be incredibly smart on the platforms that they have expertise on. As you can imagine, Brady and I, not a lot of IP around Unix and Linux. But if we can make an infrastructure in a way that they can be the really, really smart folks and just plug in and we provide the train for them to ride, it's a great model for you guys because it really simplifies the operational infrastructure.
So, we promised a demo. We want to show a demo. So if we switch to the demo machine, we're going to show...
My Madonna mic keeps falling off. I don't
Yes, we have these wonderful Madonna mics. We're going to do Milli Vanilli later.
Yeah.
The demo machine's up. So this is the administrative console we know and love. Not too different in SP1. But what I want to show, first of all, is the new folder support. So you see I have the packages node open here. There's not very many packages in this demo environment, but you can imagine in your environment the many thousands that you have. When I do right mouse click, I now have the ability to say new and create a folder. And I can give the folder a name, like we'll call this the temp package folder. It refreshes and now creates a folder underneath this. So if I want to populate this folder, move some of the packages into it, once again I can right mouse click and do the move folder item. This is where we do actually wish that we had drag and drop in the UI, but we don't currently have that. But I can select a particular package, like in this case I'll move the MS Reader package, and I'll move this, instead of from the packages node, I'll move this into the folder I just created, the temporary package node, and click OK. And if I now look, I've now moved that package underneath the folder node. So I can do this for queries, I can do this for packages.
We appreciate shameless applause, please.
Thank you for the patience in waiting for this to happen. Another thing I want to show you is the inventory changes that we were talking about. So if I go under the site hierarchy and look at the client options for software inventory, client agents, software inventory, properties.
He is the PM for this feature, by the way.
Yeah, so and since this is not I should be able to do this then, since it's mine. Under inventory collection, remember where I can specify rules. If I specify a new rule, I can specify that I want to look for all MFC *.dll, and I can specify that that when I search directories, I can specify that I want to search all subdirectories, or I want to exclude the Windows subdirectory. By clicking the button down here, I can either exclude the Windows subdirectory or include it. So as I say, if I want to look for this file in the Windows directory, I can set that to look in the Windows directory, and then I can change my default one where I'm going to exclude the Windows subdirectory. When you upgrade your site, if you're running SMS 2003 RTM, we will default to not excluding the Windows subdirectory on rules that you already have. But if you create a new rule, the default will always be to exclude the Windows subdirectory. So we won't affect the rules that you already have and give you one more thing to worry about behavior changing when you upgrade. But what we expect is that since what's in the Windows directory is typically not very interesting from a management standpoint, that it's almost an atomic entity of things that are pumped down with that version of the operating system, that in most cases you won't want to actually go through the inefficiency of having SMS scan through the 16,000 files that are in there. So we set that as the default. So that's the software inventory.
Great. Anything else you want to show? Anything else to say? Okay. You're going to see the majority of the rest of it. He would have shown you some of the client health stuff. He'll show you that on Friday. I really do. I know it stinks. That's like the worst session on the face of the earth. Because it's like the 11 o'clock session on Friday. But I'm sure all of you will be still in here watching sessions on Friday and not out golfing or sunning by the pool or cruising the strip or anything else. So make sure you get to his session on Friday. I think it'll be a good one. So the last thing that I think we want to do, we've got about 25 minutes, so we'll spend about 15 minutes to tee up the rest of the releases this year, and then we'll try and save about 10 minutes or so for QA. We want to keep you guys on time. We know that you want to get out of the room, go get more caffeine, use the restroom, get to your next rooms and stuff. So we kind of trimmed the content down a little bit. First thing, last year I demoed this thing.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's actually real code now. Unlike last year. Although there was one piece of real code last year that I couldn't show you, which is actually the WIM imaging technology that's pretty cool. So, you're doing this?
Yes. There will be a session on this later in the week. This is the OS deployment feature pack. This will be a new add-on for existing SMS customers. This will also be fully integrated in the System Center product that will be shipping later. But what the OSD feature pack allows you to do is to capture images of systems using an imaging technology that we're shipping that's file-based rather than sector-based, so it's more efficient. It allows you to capture those images and then using the SMS infrastructure, deploy those images to workstations around your environment. So either new systems that are coming in, servers or desktops that are coming into your environment, you can provision them, put the operating system down with OSD, or if you're redeploying a system, handing down to a new user, then you can use this to reach out and touch that system while it's on the network and put a new operating system on it. What we provide to do this is, first of all, this is fully integrated as part of SMS. This shows up as another package that is deployable by SMS. That means you can replicate the packages using SMS around your infrastructure so that using the advanced client roaming capabilities, when a client is receiving a new image, it will use the algorithms that already exist in software distribution to find the closest possible distribution point to download that. Since images would typically be relatively large, that's a distinct advantage. We provide the capabilities to inventory what's out there and to automatically set the SMS client back up once the system's been moved over. We have enhancements to the USMT user state migration tool that will allow it to run in a multi-user environment to capture all of the profiles and state for all users who may have been on that machine and be able to restore that. I mentioned the new advanced Windows imaging format. Many imaging products today use a sector-based format, which copies essentially the entire disk, regardless of how much space has been used. And although they do compress that, that's capturing a fair amount of space, considering that most of the hard drive is empty. What we're doing in the OS deployment feature pack is using an imaging format that's file-based. This allows us to only copy the directories necessary to represent the operating system. We also compress this and get about a 3-to-1 compression on it. This means when we go to lay the operating system back down, we don't have to disturb most of the disk. We can just change the pieces necessary to deploy the operating system. In this feature pack, we also provide an advanced task sequencing capability, because deploying an operating system is more than just copying the files down. There's many steps that you need to do on the front end before the old operating system is wiped away. Things like saving the user state that may be there, or running other preparatory actions. And then on the back end, there may be tasks that you need to do, like installing other SMS packages before we release the system back to the users to be able to log on, or restoring the user state, or being able to change the disk partitioning. So we provide an extensive custom task scheduling capability that when the operating system is deployed, you can sequence what task you want to occur when, and do this under a control that if something fails, it allows the package to have error handling to be able to tell it what to do next. So this is all under the guise of an SMS package that's deployable around, so that you can build up a library of these, and you can use them. We'll go to the next slide.
Oh, sorry.
For the three scenarios that we're set up to use, one is to do an in-place migration. This is the case where you have an existing system that is already managed by SMS, and what you want to do is move it to a new release of an operating system or a new release of your desktop standard, and you want to standardize that. What you want to do is to wipe the system and load it. So what we allow is this package to be distributed as an SMS package, install the new operating system, and then return it back to the once it returns back to the user's log on, the task is completed, all user state is restored. So while we have it under the system's control, we're doing all the tasks defined by the administrator, and there's not a case of the end user sitting there trying to do work, and then a few minutes later some other activity happens and causes a reboot. We do all of that within the sequence, and then when the user is released for login, the system is totally refurbished. And as I mentioned, we also allow the ability to install SMS applications as well. I know many of you have experienced the latency involved when you put a new system on the network and you're waiting for SMS collection reevaluator to go through its cycle and determine to send applications down. In this task scheduler, we have the capability of embedding SMS package programs so that you can control, while the system is running this task, what order you want those SMS packages to go in, and there's zero latency. As soon as the operating system's installed, it goes on to the next task. It would then run those SMS package installs. So the other scenario that we enable is a machine replacement or a new machine. In this case, the machine was never been managed by SMS before. So one mode that we support is the ability that there's a bootable CD, which we can also later boot under something like a RIS server, but it could also be distributed just as a bootable CD, and this bootable CD is tied to a particular package and program that's supposed to be on that system, and the administrator, or in fact possibly even a knowledgeable end user, can put this CD into the machine, boot it, and it will, just as if it had been distributed by SMS, will fully install the operating system, fully install the SMS client, complete the installation of any other SMS packages, and send that status information back up to the SMS host once it completes to let it know that it's done. So in the last scenario is a break-fix type environment where a machine is not working well and the help desk wants to go through some type of an SLA where they may take 20 minutes to try and diagnose the problem, and if it doesn't work after that, then either distributed by SMS or via the CD, the help desk can wipe the machine and restore it and get it back into a running state. And it will do this first by saving the user's state of the machine, any settings they've made, any folders or files that they have on the local workstation, save those off, and then restore them back once the system's been done. So those are the three major scenarios that we're trying to enable with this release. This is also an infrastructure, so as we're building this into the product, you'll see this technology being leveraged as we move further down the line where there'll be other capabilities of it, but these are the three end-to-end scenarios that we're initially enabling with this product that we'll be shipping later this year.
A couple of quick clarifications. When Brady and I were talking to you guys last year, one of the key deliverables for the OS Deployment Feature Pack was the ability to support the image formats that you have in production today. Things like, well, it used to be semantic and PowerQuest, and now it's just semantic, so it made it a little easier. One of the things that we've run into is because of the fact that those are sector-based and not file-based, it takes a whole lot of disk partitioning in general to do remote partition management. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Windows PE, or the pre-install environment of Windows. That's what we use for our intermediary operating system for this. There will be some changes in Windows PE that come out in the Windows Server 2003 SP1 timeframe that will allow WinPE to boot into a RAM drive. At that point in time, we will, as diligently as humanly possible, get the support in for semantic images and for PowerQuest images, because it's critical that we get that RAM drive support to be able to handle these sector-based imaging formats. But we didn't want to hold the whole thing up just to get the support for those two image formats that are out there on the market. And frankly, as Brady alluded to, it becomes a generic framework. We could literally deliver pretty much any image underneath of it at that point in time. But wanted to make sure we're very, very clear about that. It's still a priority one for us to be able to support those image formats that you already have a huge investment in. But in the same token, we want to ship something Q3 this calendar year that allows you to really start deploying images en masse to be able to get your desktops migrated across. And as I think we spoke about last year, well, actually this fall, the Windows imaging format is based on some technologies, some Microsoft technologies. We're building a standalone solution around it for imaging today. Those technologies and the format for setting up an operating system carry forward into Longhorn. So even if you're using Ghost and PowerQuest images, which we encourage you to do, we want you to take a look at the Windows imaging format inside of the OS Deployment Feature Pack. It's like a tutorial on how to deploy Longhorn today. By investing in the scripts and the processes around this particular imaging format and structure, it's like paving the way for you when we ship Longhorn. It's really about getting you ready for the next couple of years as you make that next big desktop leap. So I wanted to be very clear about that. Second thing I want to kind of be very clear about is the user state migration tool. You guys have been loud and clear over years and years and years of feedback to say, right? I mean, it's okay, but it still had some really hard things. I had to log on as the user to capture the user's profile, and I had all of these administrative requirements and other things that I needed to do. Well, we've been working with the user state migration team, and they will be releasing an updated version of USMT in parallel with what we're shipping. So you don't have to be an SMS customer to get the benefits of the updates to USMT. Those will just be freely available at ms.com whack something. I don't know where we'll post them at. But they'll be available out on the web for all customers with the new improvements to the user state tool. We will be building integration in it so that we can actually automate that process much more successfully as part of the OS Deployment Feature Pack. So there's lots of incredibly new items that are coming out with this in the form of new WinPE, new user state migration tool, and the work that we're doing in SMS, which is that better together story that Bob was talking about today. But I wanted to make sure you guys left here very clear on that point, because of course all of you will go to Brady's session.
Yes,
anyway.
which is the last session of the week. But as I say, adding this feature allows us to close the loop on managing devices. From when they first come in the door and you put the operating system on them throughout their entire life till you finally decommission them, we now are able to fully manage with SMS once we add this feature pack later this fall.
And come see Brady's session. It's going to be real code and all kinds of fun. So let's talk widgets. Device management. We also talked about this. Actually, we announced it to you guys 2 years ago. We love to announce stuff to you. Have you noticed that? So we're actually finally getting our fruition on this, and this is going to ship in Q3 this year as well. It's an add-on for SMS to manage CE-based devices. As a separate note, we actually do support XP Embedded today. So if you put the advanced client into the designer process for XP Embedded, we can manage those embedded devices today. So this is more focused on things like CE and Pocket PC. So there are components that install on your SMS site systems, an agent that installs on either mobile Pocket PC. Notice there's something new up there, and smartphone. One of the things we're announcing here first, and Russell's going to be doing some more demos, I think, on later today, is not only will we be supporting CE and Pocket PC, but smartphone 03. So it's a pretty good thing. We're kind of excited about that. The agent, as you guys know, I think we spoke about it last year, the agent is actually inside the operating system. So when you talk to your manufacturer, they can put the agent in there for you at build time, or you can deploy it in all kinds of different ways. The device clients then connect up to the same SMS server roles, just like an advanced agent does today. So there's a management point add-on called the device management proxy that installs on the management point that those agents actually talk to. And the goal is to have a common administration experience, common infrastructure, all the things that we spoke about earlier. Features, what does it do? It does hardware and software inventory, file collection, you know, the basic stuff. Software disks, scripts. One of the things we've added that I think is a pretty cool demo, and I don't want to ruin Russell's surprise, but needless to say, I want to say it's pretty cool, is settings management and password policy management. So what we realize is when you're managing widgets, really config settings are nothing more than cab files that whack registries. So we've built this really nice interface with the most common configuration settings that you just hit them and apply, and it'll automatically make a cab file for you to go set those settings down. And Russell will walk you through some of those. I think it's a really compelling offering. And then the other thing we're doing is to make sure we can deploy the agent successfully. So if you've got a device cradled up with active sync on your managed node, we can actually use SMS to automatically deploy the agent to that. And once an agent's on it, if it's got network connectivity, whether it's wireless, whether it's plugged into Ethernet, whether it's cradled through your PC, we can actually manage it. And on the right-hand side, you see the platforms. Current support CE 4.2, Pocket PC 03, Pocket PC Phone Edition 03, planned for this year, Smartphone 03 as well, and he'll have more details on that. And we're investigating PPC 02 and the older versions of the smartphone. Now, again, as it says there, this will require SMS 2003 SP1. So if you're looking at managing these particular devices, you will want to get on the beta of SP1 as we release it the next month or so, month to 2 months, to start really evaluating that. So we're right at about 10 minutes left, so we're wrapping up exactly where I wanted to. It's been an incredibly busy past year. And it's exciting for us to stand up here and actually ship something as opposed to promise stuff. And you guys have made a lot of this possible. A lot of work to go, though. Some timelines to lay out for this. SP1 will go beta in the next month to 2, end of April, early May, we think, somewhere in that ballpark area. So make sure you watch for that. The device management feature pack is in beta now. In fact, that posted, today Tuesday? I think it actually posts Wednesday. Ask Russell for more details. So there'll be a public beta of that that's out there that you can evaluate. OS deployment goes beta
in June.
So it's a little later this summer because of the dependencies on USMT and WinPE and a few other moving hurdles. So keep your eyes peeled to Microsoft.com WAC management for updates on those and make sure you get a hold of those. Along with all of the stuff that's going on in Q3 of this calendar year, we also have System Center. So System Center 1, which we kind of walked through some of the System Center scenarios today, all of that is going to be coming out, we think, probably Q3 of this calendar year. So it's going to be a pretty busy next 6 months from us. And then I hope many of you, I know we've got about 70 or 80 or so, are attending some focus group sessions throughout this week. That feedback is critically important for us as we're prioritizing the investments in the next version of System Center, SC2. We're not giving it a code name. We're just going to say SC version 2. So it's critical that we get and capture your feedback around the new investment areas through this week. So if you signed up for a focus group, make sure you attend. We would love to capture your feedback and build the right product. And of course, attend all the sessions. I think there's a list. We've been talking about some of these sessions this week. You should go take a look at. Brady's got client health on Friday. Brady's got OS deployment on Thursday. Russell is actually later today with device management. In fact, I think he's right after us.
This room immediately after this session.
What's that?
Yes, device management is immediately after this session.
That's correct. So you should just stay here, and Russell will welcome you to the wonderful world of widgets. So you guys can take a look at that. Make sure you plan your calendars appropriately for feedback and follow up on that. And I think with that, we want to kind of wrap it and give you guys a chance to either funnel out or to ask some questions. So in the back, if you guys can kill the lights a little bit, I think we've got live mics in the hallway. We would love to answer whatever we think we can with a high degree of confidence. If not, thanks for your time, guys.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
You got the lights on you.
oh no, and not only is he at the mic, but he's got a piece of paper with like 100 questions on it. Go ahead, sir.
200 questions.
Ooh. Very nice.
Greg Smith from Pfizer Inc. We deployed SMS 2003 to part of our business already, and about 20% of our clients are Salesforce who are poorly connected. Now, so far it's going really well, but when it comes to patch management packages, like the security update tool or distributing a patch, we want them to download and execute, but every time there's a change, even something small like the XML file for scanning, it has to download the whole package. This is a big hit on the poorly connected clients. So when will the advanced client support Delta package downloading?
So there's two answers. Let me kind of read that back. So when will the advanced client support Delta package? So there's one way you can structure it today. I don't know how you're doing this, but you have the ability, at least as it's reevaluating, it can only ask for the patches that it needs. Are you asking for just giving it the patches, or are you asking for the binary differences between what it has and what the update really is? Because there's two different questions there.
I'm asking for whatever you can give me to minimize what the client has to download.
Yeah. But today, if you're architecting your packages appropriately, a lot of our customers, as opposed to delivering a lot of one-offs, they'll have large packages that they just use the SUW to go post the updates to ongoing. So maybe I've got my Windows 2000 professional package, and anytime I have a new patch for it, I just check it into that package. Well,
That's exactly what we're doing.
okay.
But for the poorly connected clients, they're now re-downloading that entire package. So as time goes by and those packages get bigger, they're downloading a lot more every time.
Yeah. Short of doing a bunch of small packages that are one-offs, there's probably nothing in place that we can solve today on this. It's great feedback. We'll go do an investigation and see if we can solve it short term. The long-term strategy is that we actually align with Windows Update Services, which not only has that ability, but even has some binary compressions built into it. So not only would we only download the package that you need or the patch that you need, we would only download the binaries that separate that from what your system really is. So we'll be doing that, but that's still a ways out for them to get their next release of Windows Update Services with the infrastructure we need. For today, though, yeah, if you're doing large packages, the default is if there's something new there, it's going to download full package store.
It would be a big help if you could do a Delta for the client.
Yeah, that's great feedback. I mean, the client does the Delta on install, but it doesn't do it on download.
Thanks.
Yep. Over here, sir.
Yeah, your workgroup support or
Yes.
cross-work, is that going to be cross-forest also? I've got some forests that are managed by Honeywell for process control, and we'd like some connectivity into those forests for management purposes.
Yeah, I'd encourage you to go to John Ellis' session, and he can answer the specifics in your environment. But we are doing work with cross-forest support as well.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know how you would have work groups cross forest, because forest means it's a domain. So that's kind of a different question, right? There's a question of what am I going to do to manage systems cross forest, and there's a series of trust relationships to centralize the security that you would want to do through that. The other is if I just have a generic work group that doesn't have a security authority, what can I do? One of the things we did, because we weren't sure how much time this was going to take, there's actually a backup slide in the content that we presented today that details the work group support stuff. So we'll talk about what scenarios are supported, what scenarios aren't supported, and it'll also give you some restrictions, right? You know, we can't just say it works. We have to say it works, but hey, look, you know what? If you're trying to use accountless infrastructure, we have to have a local account to be able to do some of these pieces. And hey, if you want to do AD targeting, not going to be able to do that in a workgroup mode. So there's actually a set of caveats and restrictions that you can look at there. So for cross-forest, though, we actually have plans in place on how we have support for cross-forest today. It's just a matter of how you're doing the integration between the forests. But even if you're not integrating the forests, you probably could just treat them as a separate work group and still be able to manage those pieces as long as the IP subnets were in the defined scope of your SMS site.
Which session was that?
John Ellis, that's the one. The slide just disappeared off the
they took it
screen.
off.
It's going to be Wednesday at 8:30. SCO8.
Security architecture and best practices. Yes, sir.
Bill, Brady, hi. I was wondering about the virtual PC comments that you made. For those of us that use virtual PC to actually test normal client functionality, is there anything we need to be aware of when it recognizes a new type of client, as you were alluding to?
You mean managing a virtual PC
Right.
or running SMS inside virtual?
Yeah, no, you can put the SMS client, each operating system, whether it's running real or running virtual, can be managed. They'll have a separate SMS agent on it. So if you're running XP and you've got virtual PC on it and several guest images, then the host operating system is one client to SMS, and each of the guest operating systems is a separate one. And then what I also mentioned is with the inventory enhancements, the guest operating system or the guest operating systems will report the name of the host operating system that they're running under, so you'll know the difference between a client that's running on a real system or one that's running in a VPC environment.
Okay.
But otherwise, they look just like any other clients.
Right. That was my concern, was that I'd have to somehow test differently now with virtual PC. Any expectation to extend that to VMware?
Any expectation to extend that to VMware? So I guess my politically
I never should have asked.
My politically correct answer would be, wow, if VMware wanted to actually create a WMI provider that delineated the class of host versus managed device, we'd be more than happy to consume that provider. Thanks, Joel. Yes, sir, over here.
Yeah, good morning, Bill. And
Hey, Dana. How are you?
I'm fine. How you
Good.
doing? Hey, I really like to see the folders within the admin UI. That's sort of a surprise for me. That's nice. I'm wondering about the security within the folders that is applied. Is it just folders sitting there in limbo, or is it? Can we apply security to it also?
So the answer is that there's no. If you saw the folder pop up when it was there, there is no security.
Okay.
The folder's not a secured object.
The packages within it are, but
Exactly.
the folder is not.
Yeah, we forgot that. Sorry.
Also, with the
It was hard.
It was hard.
that is a hard job. So I'm thinking towards the collections also. you're going to be applying the same security on the collections that exist currently, just going to be sitting in sort of a grouped object.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks.
That's it.
Dana.
Thanks.
Good. Yes, sir.
Hi. On the folders subject,
Yes, Alan.
well, we have thousands of packages, and folders is a cool feature, but if we could organize packages dynamically based upon their properties, such as manufacturer, vendor, and the version, basically providing kind of an alternative view.
Yeah, that's great feedback. Obviously, step one for us was just to give somebody the ability to kind of move those pieces. So I'm a little out of my box here, but programmatically, I mean, I don't know any reason why if you decided you didn't want to create a scriptlet or somebody at myitforum.com wanted to create something that allowed me to say for packages that start with the following nomenclature or based on package property foo, all of these particular machines belong to this particular folder. I don't know why you couldn't create it, but it's not anything that we're doing.
Well, yeah, but that would be kind of, repetitive task you would have to perform. Well, I'm thinking more kind of, alternative view, just say, show packages, basically dynamically build a tree based upon package properties. So you don't have to worry about organizing packages manually. As you add new package or change its property, it automatically falls into the proper tree.
Yeah, it's great. It's great
Good
feedback.
feedback.
We don't have it there programmatically. I would hope that it's actually exposed if somebody wanted to go build it as a one-off tool.
Yeah, as Bill mentioned, we wanted to release this because people have been asking for this for some time immediately, but this is not the end-all or be-all of how we want to organize packages. We just wanted to get this out there because we had a window here that would allow us to do that, and that was obviously something people have been asking us for some time.
Can I ask a second question, or should I get back?
No, go ahead, Alan.
All right. The second question is, on the offering, basically, when the user gets an advertisement, right, we could have it mandatory, we can have it an optional. Is there anything in between? For example, can we say, remind the user, let's say, every 24 hours until the mandatory time?
We have some of those pieces inside of the security updating elements for things like rebooting, which is every 3 hours you get that blue notice that says, hey guy, reboot your system, hey guy, reboot your system, and it's all customized, right? Mine pops up and says your SMS administrator's, dinked with your system, please restart it, type of thing. So we don't necessarily have that for the standard advertisement, but we have put in an update specific to reboot. It's good feedback from that ongoing notification process. It's one of the things that if we did it, we'd have to expose it and immediately give you the turn off button though too, because some people would say, I don't want it. But so you can do it for patch today for reboot, but you can't do it for just generic advertisement spec.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
One more question, I think, because we want to make the next session late.
Yep.
So-
You hit on the idea of controlling the distribution of software to clients, or not so much distributing it to clients, but controlling how many clients and when they can be picking up their software. For example, a distribution window and how many machines can be loading against, say, a distribution point. So when we do a security update, we're not looking at 50,000 machines hitting so many distribution points for those updates, where we can stagger those over a period of time. Can you hit on the features in SMS 2003 or 2003 Service Pack 1?
No, so let me repeat the question. So the question is, I'm sending out patches to 110,000 machines, but I have a limited set of DPs, and I don't want all 110,000 clients to start pulling from my DPs at the same time. Is there any way that I can cascade the behavior across the DP so that my DPs don't get crushed like that? And the answer is no, but what we're finding is the bits behavior inherently with the advanced client almost natively does that. Right, because it's just doing a request and a pull and a request and a pull, and I'm downloading that particular content. There's also a stagger in the frequency with which the clients actually check for information anyway. So that's every hour or every 4 hours plus or minus X number of random byte. So there's a native set of processes put in place to do that. But what we're finding is two things. The advanced client is actually doing that a lot better. That native kind of throttling behavior allows it to kind of gracefully back up and not kill your DPs. And the second thing we're finding is that with a management point that supports that amount of dynamics, just for kicks, we like to do things for kicks. In OTG, we did a 10 meg package to 35,000 machines on the same MP and the same DP and hit 97% compliance in about 4 hours. So from a scale standpoint, we actually believe that the majority of the things that you don't need to architect against that. We believe that the behaviors in the product today are actually solving a lot of that with the scalability improvements that we've made both in RTM as well as some of the stuff in SP1. Okay? Tell you what, for the rest of them, why don't you guys just come up here, we'll take them offline. Thanks again for your time.
Thanks again.